how Endwalker fixes Zenos, Final Fantasy XIV lore by Stout Helm. Obviously, spoilers will be inbound. Zenos, I have made no small secret, is my actual favorite character, not only in 14, but in all of fiction. And I kind of want to see what direction we're going to go with this.
A story 10 years in the making has come to a close. Final Fantasy XIV's latest expansion, Endwalker, wraps up so many pieces of a larger puzzle. That includes this man, Zenos,
yes!
a controversial villain that many considered poorly motivated. No real personality, one-dimensional. But Zenos is a misunderstood guy. I did a video before Endwalker's release diving into his history and what drives him as a character. Go watch that video before you get into this one. Now, I will concede that Zenos lacked what makes some of Final Fantasy XIV's villains so compelling, and I was hopeful the writing team would bring Zenos' story to a close again in an interesting way, and what we got is fantastic. Let's dive deeper into Zenos' part in Endwalker, and a massive spoiler alert to anyone who hasn't finished the expansion story. We'll be going through all of it, so you've been warned.
I don't remember that fight. Is that
I'm
the trailer?
going to gloss over a good chunk of what Zenos does leading up to the final chapters of the expansion. These events aren't that important in the grand scheme of things. Now, when we last saw Zenos, he reclaimed his body from the Ascian Elidibus. He killed his father and plunged Garlemald into chaos. The rogue Ascian Fandaniel approaches him and proposes an alliance. Here's the plan. Gather Aether inside the lunar towers to send to the main tower in Garlemald. Use all of that Aether to fire at the moon, breaking the ancient seal holding the most powerful primal of all, Zodiark. Fandaniel even offers Zenos the chance to absorb Zodiark's power to use in the ultimate battle against the Warrior of Light.
You shall come to me, all roiling rage and rancor. And the stars shall bear witness to our final contest.
Zenos' motivation is very straightforward. The Warrior of Light is the only person he's ever felt a connection with. He's always been so much stronger than anyone else. Zenos goes from dismissing the Warrior in their first fight to hungering for a battle where they are equals. Zenos refers to the Warrior as his only friend multiple times in the story. Not conventional friends, but someone who makes him feel alive. To Zenos, life is dull and meaningless unless his life is on the line. The Warrior is the only person who can do that. The Empire, his own family, those people mean nothing to him. No one understands Zenos like the Warrior does.
It mostly comes down to, like, he doesn't... The funniest thing that I have ever heard, and it's really funny because it's kind of... I like to decide it a lot. Zenos is king of the autists, and I mean that as a neurospicy individual myself. Like, when you look at his motivations and you look at why he does certain things, and we'll get into the finale, so I'm not gonna really dive into that too much now. He doesn't understand people. Like, he himself will say that he doesn't understand people. He doesn't understand those around them, what drives him. He knows combat. He arguably loves combat. He loves the thrill of the hunt, right? That's kind of his thing. So he hyper-focuses on combat, is clearly not only just a pure-blooded Garlean, but literal son of John World of Warcraft himself. Oh my god, I loved it, dude. I love the Emperor. Those big shoulder pads. Like, he's good. He's clearly good. So for somebody who doesn't understand others, for somebody who seeks only their own ambitions and is never challenged because they're just that good, right? Like, that makes sense to him. And one of the unfair criticisms I've heard about Zenos is, well, they introduced him really poorly. You know, you just went into a fight and you realized it was a fight that you couldn't win. Okay, I have yet to come across a single person who has complained about Ranjit from Shadowbringers in the same way. I hated Ranjit, especially when we used the Zenos introduction in Stormblood. And then we go into Shadowbringers, because the way that it's set up is, oh, well, clearly this is the boss you have to fight at the end of the expansion, right? Or close to the end of the expansion, right? In Stormblood, it's Zenos, and Shadowbringers, it's Ranjit. This is the power level. You lack the sufficient power to take this down, therefore it's a set-piece fight. Grats, have fun. I disagree with Granjit because it felt like a more soulless Zenos interaction from a gameplay perspective when you clearly know that it's just a fight that's you're not supposed to win. I also don't feel Ranjit deserved the status he did, despite him being literal head of the Yulmore military. Like, I have my reservations against that, and that actually almost killed Shadowbringers until after 74. It wasn't until after Titania that Shadowbringers really started to kind of take hold on me. I hated early Shadowbringers.
Even if our hero doesn't quite see it that way. This aspect of Zenos' character is something some folks take issue with, but it's an incredibly important piece of Endwalker's story, but we'll come back to that a little later. Zenos shows up again during your first trip to Garlemald. The Alliance just brought much of the Empire's remaining soldiers and people to their camp. It seems like a positive turn, until Fandaniel shows up and whisks the warrior away.
Yeah!
You wake up to an elegant meal atop the Tower of Babel.
It's so cool. It's kind of like this macabre feast kind of thing. Not that it's like they're clearly just having dinner, but it's like it hits that what is it? That uncanny valley a little bit where it's two friends having dinner together, but the subtext is so much darker. It's so much more I love Endwalker. It was so good. It was so depressing.
Zenos is there too, but he doesn't say much. Fandaniel uses Allegan technology to pull the Warrior of Light from his own body and put his soul inside a nameless Garlean soldier. As for Zenos, he's in control of your body now, and heading straight for the Alliance camp. The warrior literally has to crawl his way back to stop Zenos from killing Alice and Gratia. The body switch expires, and Zenos promises he'll see his friends soon. So what was the point of this exercise? Well, Zenos wants the warrior to bring all his fury and anger against him.
All your hate, all your rage, you will render unto me.
The Scions ascend the tower, slay the primal anima, and confront Zenos and Fandaniel.
Anima is also John World of Warcraft, the prior emperor, made into a primal. That's a little bit of subtext there.
Villains have what they want and fire the Aether from the tower straight to the moon. All but one piece of the seal breaks, so Fandaniel and Zenos teleport to the moon to finish the job. The warrior gives chase, but despite their efforts, Zenos breaks that last seal and sets the primal Zodiark free. The warrior is ready to fight, but there's a change in plan. Fandaniel merges with the primal instead, not Zenos. This is so he can destroy the primal's heart when he's gained enough control, and that's Fandaniel's true plan. With Zodiark gone, the final days will commence, bringing about the destruction of the star. This should come as no real surprise, but Zenos doesn't really care. He initially challenges the warrior to settle their unfinished business on the moon, but he recognizes that the end of the universe is a pretty big distraction. So Zenos steps aside, urging the warrior to stop the final days. In the meantime, he'll be finding new ways to gain strength. This further reinforces how important this battle is to him. He wants the warrior at his best, with nothing else to interfere. Zenos is more than willing to wait until that can happen. Zenos.
I did like that part about his characterization. Like, he understood that, like, he was ready. He was ready to have that fight. But he intuited that this is not the place. This is not the time. You are busy, focused on other things. This will not give me... You could argue it's not necessarily even selfless of him. It's selfish of him. It is selfish of Zenos to look into this and go, well, this will not give me the fight that I crave. You're too distracted. Go stop the final days. I will go continuously find more ways to gain more strength until you're ready, right? You could argue that that is both selfless and selfish of him, because he doesn't do it not for the good of others, not so the Warrior of Light can necessarily do it, but he knows that the Warrior of Light will never give him the fight that he craves until the issue is dealt with. It's an interesting moment of growth for him, especially coming from, coming from things like Stormblood, where, I mean, you could argue his escalation has been pretty linear, line go up in regards to atrocities committed in Alamigo. Like, he's not a good dude, don't get me wrong. Atrocities committed in Alamigo, going into atrocities committed in Garlemald, brainwashing with Fandaniel's help the entirety of the Garlean population, or most of the Garlean population, right? Like, He's done some pretty bad stuff. We can objectively say that. So it's interesting in terms of growth where he recognizes that continuing to go as he is will not yield the results that he wants. And that's a very pivotal point for his characterization.
Shows back up during your second trip to Garlemald, destroying one of the abominations, but don't be fooled, he didn't do this to save the man. No, Zenos is just sharpening his skills, the appetizer before the main course.
I did love this scene, the whole Julius Zenos scene, because Zenos just kind of shows up, kills the thing, and he's just like, hi, I am here. And then Alice and Julius completely lay into him, which was really good for his characterization. You could argue it was cold, but once again, like, Zenos has kind of done some pretty bad stuff. Like, he kind of pitted the world against him.
This leads to an iconic conversation between Zenos, the Scions, and Eulus of the Imperial Army.
Would you be happier had I a good reason?
It's good. It's great. I loved it.
What? If my motives met with your approval, would you no longer resent the outcome? If so, then perhaps a beast's skin would suit you better. Duty, honor, morality. All constructs of convenience when put to proof. Surely the war taught you how easily power becomes the tool of the self-righteous. How the people's justice was merely a means to their ends?
This line is...
Like, he poses so many good questions. It's not that he's bad for the sake of being bad. He comes to his own conclusions. He takes the information that from the world, right? With the understanding that he doesn't understand others. He doesn't understand other people. That's not necessarily a crutch for him. That's like, look, I don't understand why you people do the things that you do. I'm kind of good at this. These are my conclusions that I've drawn. And clearly we can see that his own conclusions are wrong. He's in a self-reflective state, I would argue right now, where he wanted that nothing more with that fight with the Warrior of Light. But he cannot get that fight so long as there are other things taking their attention. He is understanding that his worldview may not necessarily be correct.
A perfect representation of Zenos as a character, and it's a really important one. Zenos understands that people are hurt by the things he's doing. The Garlean Empire is no more because of him. Thousands have suffered all because of his personal vendettas. Eulus is seething before him because of everything that's happened. But Zenos counters with his belief about morality. He says people can justify their ends however they choose, and they would be right no matter what that choice is. The meaning in someone's life can only be determined and discovered by that person, no one else.
Perhaps you found meaning in living this way. I cannot deny you found strength. Yet if you only pursue your hedonistic pleasures and pay no heed to the plight of others, then no one will give you the time of day.
I love that this is the line that Alice left him on, because that does prompt the sequence of events that leads to Endsinger. This line from Alice has Zenos check his entire view.
Ultimately, Alize has the final word, leaving Zenos with that bit of wisdom to chew on. He'll never get what he wants unless he takes an interest in the struggles of those around him. She answers the question that Zenos has been stumped by since the story of Endwalker began. Why won't the Warrior of Light direct all of his passion and strength towards him? Why won't my friend make time for me? Alice sums it up perfectly, but did Zenos really hear what she had to say? Let's jump forward a little bit to this brief scene atop the Royal Menagerie in Alamigo. This is the place where Zenos merged with Shinryu, clashed with his friend, and tried to take his own life upon defeat. Zenos takes some time to reflect on that previous conversation, everything he wants, and why it's always managed to stay out of reach. We leave Zenos to ponder that as the story progresses in Ultima Thule. Let's make another leap forward. The Scions have sacrificed themselves to pave the path for the warrior, the voices of friends echoing in their mind, pushing them forward. Ancients return to open the door to the very end. The warrior uses Azem's crystal to bring all of the Scions back. All that remains is the terrifying representation of life's futility.
I think that was a good summary. There's a little bit more there, but in terms of relating to just Zenos and story progression, that was a pretty good summary.
Hopelessness and despair. The Scions confront Medion's strongest manifestation, the Endsinger. Try as they might, the Scions are outmatched. The warrior knows he has to face her alone and sends their friends away. The Endsinger questions why the warrior would save them now if their friendship is what gives them their strength. The warrior refuses to back down. And then...
It's so good.
At the end of everything, I find you, my friend. I sought something in you once, as you did in me. I take it this is your prey. But why does it still live? Surely it is no match for you.
Finally, Zenos understands. Alisaie's words were spot on. Zenos realizes to truly get the focus of his friend, he will need to understand the struggle. So he took much of the aether left over from the Mother Crystal, transformed to Shinryu, and raced to the edge of the universe, all to help his friend. This moment evolves Zenos in a significant way. He's no longer just a chaotic force infatuated with our hero. He's now the perfect foil for Medion. Remember, she believes all life to be pointless. There's far too much suffering, sadness, and hatred. She believes she's doing mankind a favor, the greatest service, by wiping the universe clean. Zenos, on one hand, agrees that life is meaningless, but even he has that one thing that keeps him going. Someone as horrible as him, who hates every aspect of life, is a great representation of Heidelin's message. Remember what she said? In darkness, seek joy. That's who Zenos is. He's not just a bloodlusted maniac. He truly views the warrior as his only friend, and the only way he knows how to share the things he loves is through a battle where limits are tested. It's not.
It comes down. This is such a great summary too. So I don't have enough understanding of like actual literary foils and stuff. I know they exist as a concept. Foils and foils. There's a number of terms there. Like, I'm not super researched on that. Bringing the foil argument is super great, which also reinforces Final Fantasy XIV in a lot of ways is a predictable story. As people who came out, who either watch my VODs on the Kids in a Kip TV channel, watching my reaction to it, or watch when I was streaming it, there's a number of plot points that I called. That doesn't mean the story's bad in its argued simplicity, being as easy to read as it is. As long as the story is good, it's how the pieces are put together for the final execution, if that makes sense. Just because you have a predictable or even simple story does not make it a bad story. As long as you put the pieces together correctly, and as long as you have a good outcome, that's all that really matters. Which I adore. I loved seeing his entire progression from Stormblood up through post Shadowbringers, where he was very self-absorbed, very in his own world, being fed rhetoric by Fandaniel, and to coming to this understanding with Alisaie and reflecting on his own actions to help you at the literal edge of the universe. For actual lore implications, the way I understand it, it still is in the source. It is not in any other reflection. Think of it like all the like the source is one big bubble and the other smaller bubbles are the reflections, right? But like we're still in the big bubble, the source, even if on the edge of it. We're not into the void by any means. That's as far as I'm aware of it. People have argued it's in the void, like the Ascians go to the void. number of things that I feel we could actually revisit ideas at the end of the universe.
Just about the ultimate battle. It's the ultimate battle with us, because he wants to share what he loves, the only connection that has any meaning to him. The warrior, Zenos, other summoned warriors, and the Scions manage to put the Endsinger down for the count. The final days are no more. Medion sees the strength mortals have and recognizes she must give life another chance. Medion flies away, leaving only the warrior and Zenos.
You mean to return to the world where you are hailed as a hero. Hear me then. Not as a hero, but as simply you.
I love this speech because it absolutely plays to all 3 points: ethos, pathos, and logos, right? Your ethics, your feelings, and your logic, right? He plays to all 3 of these. This is such a beautifully written speech. And it really shows how far he has come as a character, as well as his understanding. An innate understanding that even maybe we as the player character may have forgotten.
As I learned in Alamigo, you are a formidable foe. Stronger than any I have faced. Against you, I need bring my all to bear. I need burn through the candle of my life. This is the sole pleasure I know, and it is the sole pleasure I have to share. And so I come before you to issue challenge and offer singular bliss. If you wish to walk away, I will not stop you. You value life. You do not burn yours save for reasons you deem worthy. Reasons such as those which brought you here. The salvation of a world and its people. The motives of a hero true. But there is more to you than that. You know this to be true. As surely as you know the thrill of pushing your body and soul to their limits. Of confronting ever mightier foes, dancing ever closer to the precipice, wondering if this will be the one to finally fill the void. Such pleasures you seek for their own sake, and no other reason. Is this not so, adventurer?
It's so good. It's the perfect retort.
Ha! Acceptance! At long last! The conflagration of our clash will scorch even the stars!
Acknowledgement indeed, not just for the warrior, but perhaps for us as players. Zenos represents much of what keeps us going. The next challenge, more difficult battles, the promise of treasures if we claim victory, a fight just for the sake of fighting. The two clash in the final duty of the story, pushing each other to the brink, somehow finding the inner strength to get back up, giving everything they've got. But it's the Warrior of Light who lands the final blow, bringing both to the ground.
Never have I understood those around me. Understood their obsessions.
This is the perfect ending to his story. Like, this is the discussion. When we talk about how he just doesn't understand people, verbatim from himself, he does not understand those around him. He doesn't understand their obsessions. Life is trivial and mundane to him. But in the brief moments of fighting, in the brief moments that he gets to do the thing he's good at, there's that spark, that light. It's fantastic to see. It's great.
Besieged by their banality, the world is a mire of tedium and trivialities. But in these fleeting moments, there is a spark. Blinding, brilliant, gone too soon. born into this world, bestowed name, bid to seek out strife and adventure. Did you find fulfillment?
And with that, Zenos' journey seemingly comes to an end. Urianger later theorizes it was Zenos' willpower who brought the teleportation device to the warrior, a final act of friendship before passing on. And with his journey completed, Zenos becomes arguably the only villain in the Final Fantasy XIV story to get what they wanted. I hope this video into Zenos gave you some insight on how the character has really grown since the Stormblood expansion. He started as a pretty one-dimensional guy, but developed into the antithesis of the greatest threat to the star. Now, I said in my first Zenos video that I hope they took his character in a fulfilling direction, and I'm really happy with what we got. He has definitely become one of the best villains of the story, and I would love to know what you think. How did you feel about Zenos' ending? Be sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and feel free to offer suggestions for future deep dives. I'll see you next time.
I think that this is great. I actually really loved this. I thought this was a very well put together piece, 100%. And I know a lot of people didn't like. I was the odd one out. Don't get me wrong. I was the odd one out in regards to me liking Zenos effectively from the outset. I think I have the VODs to prove it too. He was a very one-dimensional character, but that's fine. You're allowed to be a one-dimensional character, and I think that he was executed really well. As I said, I have a distaste for Ranjit, and the argument becomes that. It was paced a little better. I would argue the pacing in Shadowbringers was really off in comparison. Zenos was Prince of the Garlean Empire. He was kind of doing other things. Ranjit, effectively, considering you have Minfilia/Reen, is kind of going after you, but there's always the threat of, well, we have to go to the Phalanx to avoid the Yulmore pursuit. And like they're kind of around, but there's never really the inherent threat of, well, they're here until story dictates, hi, the Yulmoran Empire is here. And then they get turned to stone by the fairies. Like, I don't know. To me, it just didn't ring the same. Zenos is effectively a prince. He is royalty. He is a diplomat in certain aspects. Pretty heavy-handed diplomat because he'll just gank people. But it was very interesting to see his entire arc, and especially to its conclusion, as well as at the very end, giving justification for why he does, or rather doesn't do certain things, that he doesn't understand those around him, that he doesn't understand their obsessions. The world is full of just trivializing aspects, and it's so mundane. And this is the one thing he's only ever found joy in, which leading into his final fight. Is he redeemable? He's done a lot of rough stuff. Arguably not. I don't think Zenos could go back to the world. He couldn't go back to Garlemald. He couldn't go back without being a war criminal, right? I mean, think like Sasuke from Naruto, right? I mean, he's gonna go to prison for a bit, if anything, at minimum. And that was truly his ultimate act of just a friendship, of being able to, this is the only thing that I can really offer. And thus leading into the final confrontation, that final clash at the literal edge of the universe. And we'll see where that goes. His answer is left pretty ambiguous because he asks us more as the players, were you fulfilled? Did you find fulfillment? And it's not, I mean, then we have flashbacks to like Limsa, Kugani. We have a flashback to a couple things. And from what I understand, the like meta perception of that is that is the end of your journey over the last 10 years from A Realm Reborn and even 1.0. Whereas he just says, I, ellipses, and then presumably passes on. We don't see his eyes, therefore you could, theorize something having to do with the Echo. I'm a firm proponent of the Altaia scope being an Endwalker story, how we get to see, people like Ratatan, we get to see Livius Anjunius, we get to see Ilberd, even Fandaniel, and oh god, what's his name? Asahi. We get to see them, and then Asahi and Fandaniel sink down to effectively what I see as a lower stratum of of the live stream, Ether, whatever. So we could also see them again, but it would not surprise me if a couple expansions from now, or whenever the next Endwalker type thing is, if we have to dive into the Ethereal Sea, since that plot point is still pretty there. Right? Like, it still exists. Heidelin's no longer there, but it does exist. Would not surprise me if we had somebody help us out, or test our reflexes, so to speak. But that is all subjective. We'll see if that pans out. We'll see how this video dates itself. That is obviously all speculation. That is also with the understanding, the bias that I would very much like Zenos to come back, but he probably won't. I joke about it every expansion. 7.1 ended off the way it does. Where am I? Faint, you still will get back to us in 6 to 8 weeks with whatever she found. But, you know, I joke that it's Zenos, but I mean, realistically, it's not going to be Zenos. We know generally who it is. So it was good to see you, everybody. Thank you all for watching. I know I ranted a bit on this. Raved, I guess, is the other word I guess I should go with. I actually love this. Go ahead and check out Stout Helm. This was an amazing video. I like signal boosting creators who are able to put together some really cool videos. Very informed as this was. Very good presentation. Some edits had a little bit of pop at the beginning of those. I think they could have been spaced out a little bit better, but that's just like a sound criticism critique kind of thing. Thought this was great. Hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.